Ronan O'Gara, good morning to you.
Hi Adrian, hi Aisling.
How's it going?
Ronan.
Great. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Couple of weeks into the season, you've 2 from 2 and you have Perpignan tomorrow. Life is good?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be getting too carried away. We have had a better start, obviously, than last season, which wasn't too difficult. But we have a better squad this year, and the atmosphere is better. So pre-season was good. We have momentum. Changed up the team for tomorrow a little bit. So interesting to see opportunities for certain guys. And
Alton Delan, is that what you're saying?
No, Alton is he was involved against Leon, but unfortunately got a little bit of a tweak in the buttocks, playing on a synthetic pitch. So we need to mind him a little bit for a week or two. But yeah, he's been good, integrated really well, very popular with the boys. Great work rate in him, and smile on his face. So really pleasant to have in the environment.
You talked about the environment and the atmosphere there a couple of times, and I was looking at it last night. You've 34 players out between retirements and departures. Was that right? But it looked like a big old number, and 10 players in. Is that right, or did I landed myself on some dodgy website that was reporting misinformation?
You've had a few too many whiskies.
It's only 25 past 8.
I understand we're in France, but 34, no.
I was thinking that's the whole team is gone.
14, right.
And the backup.
Yeah.
They even have them listed out here. I don't know. It's yeah. Anyway, there's a bit of change around, is what we're saying. Is that fair enough to say? There's been.
Yeah, there's been kind of 14. Yeah, have left, or 14, I suppose, are not here, and recruited 7 with an emphasis on probably quality and younger players coming up. You know, I think that was the one big thing that I suppose that refreshing me with spending time with Scott Roberts, Crusaders, how he sets up young players to succeed. So I've really bought into that, I think, and I remember being that young player, but then as you get older you forget it and you become the experienced player. But I think there's a definite formula for seeing the best of young players and how you can set them up. So that's very much to the fore of my mind, because you can always say next time give the advantage to the experienced player. But something I'm big on is trying to just young players don't feel pain. They don't spend time on the ground. They hop off the ground. They get up. They don't get hurt. When we older players have miles on the clock, you think about things. I think when you're under 25, you don't really think. You act first. While people who understand their bodies, I think with time and experience, they know how to manage it. But I suppose the fearlessness of youth is always a great, I think, element in your team, and you have to mix that with experience, because you can't have an OAP team. You need to mix it.
And when you're bringing in these younger players and new players, how do you go about integrating them into the team? I often wonder, is there a lot of emphasis on off the pitch stuff to get them to, I suppose, to, you know, be comfortable in the environment? Because I'm sure pre-season is so important to get a good start to the year, because obviously things can be affected then from then on. So you want them to be able to be comfortable in the environment so that they kick on from there.
Yeah, and the big thing too is that some of this is probably over glorified or emphasised by coaches. It's quite simple in the fact that these guys have a pretty stable structure around them, that they're in the academy, they're sports, and they have to do, I suppose, college. It's obligatory in France in the academy system that they have to be doing education with their rugby to 21 years of age. So they're well looked after here in that regard. And I'm a big believer in, if they have something aligned with their rugby, they have a better chance of succeeding with their rugby, because it's the brain, I think, works better with that distraction as opposed to all the eggs in the basket. Rugby. It just doesn't do anyone any good, and it's not sustainable. So we put a big emphasis on that. But the most important thing is that they can be themselves, whether they're 17 or 18 or 35, that the environment caters for them to be themselves. And that's, I mean, we have a very different mix here with someone like Raymond Root, who's a bundle of energy and floats around and dances to music, and then you have some very studious guys who need to be serious to be performing. But for younger players, it doesn't matter what age they have to feel themselves to be able to perform. And we try and integrate as many as possible in pre-season, but the other side of it too is that you're trying to compete and win medals on both fronts, so it is naturally quite ruthless, but you don't necessarily want them to be feeling that they have to be ruthless.
Having come so close, obviously, in the top 14 a couple of years ago, and then getting the Heineken Cup in the bank last year, I presume all of that stuff helps with that culture and mentality that you're talking about. Have you specifically sat down? I did wonder that if this was the year you put a special emphasis on the top 14 having the European title in the bank and wanting to get over the line domestically. Is that something you speak about, or is that just like, I know you'll tell me now, we're going for it on all fronts, we want to win all games, but is there a special emphasis on the top 14 this year?
No, there isn't, because there's a special emphasis on the next half a day. I think that's the way I work, you know. I think I'm very big on just, I suppose, consistency of behaviours, consistency of personality, just try and be yourself. And if the boys are self-driven, the environment is there for them, but like, I can't drive them. I can inspire them, but I can't motivate them. So I think that's very important, that's internal inside them, and I think it is in this group. At the first, I think, championship, yes, it was the first championship for these guys, but it was the first championship in the club's history, which is quite staggering when you think about it like that. But when you've knocked one over, you want to knock as many others as you can in a shorter period of time. But you got to remember, that's in my game, that's a long time away, Adrian. It's next June or May for Champions Cup, so it's futile thinking of silverware at this stage. You're just trying to, I suppose, establish what your standards are on what your players want to achieve with each other. And then the great thing about it is that we have only 80 minutes every week to show what training is training. But boys need to get excited about playing games, and that's what we do here. I think we review our games well, and then we set ourselves up to hopefully succeed the following Saturday or fail. And then there are certain learnings that you take and you become better at.
I often wondered, to be a successful team, you have to have a buy-in from the whole panel, the whole squad. And as a head coach or a manager, it must be extremely tough to keep everybody happy. How do you go about that, I suppose, with lads that aren't making the squad and things like that? Because I think you spoke about it before, that you need to have the buy-in from everyone, and I suppose everyone's not happy all the time.
Yeah, exactly, of course, Aisling. But I think, you know, I'm fooling myself thinking of getting buy-in from everyone. You know, that just won't happen. You know, you're going to have 5 stragglers here and there. That's normal. It's just that you don't want these boys bringing down, I suppose, the middle tier who are uncertain. But I think after last season, sometimes actions are way more powerful than words. In Marseille, for whatever it was, 20 minutes, 20 seconds, when that whistle goes, if that doesn't stimulate you to be better, nothing will. So I can go up to the top of the room and get excited and do what I want, but the boys have tasted it now, and believe me, it tasted incredibly good, and they'll tell you that. So they have a little taste for it now, so they want to kick on.
How do you, they say there's always that element in a group, that sort of element, you're talking with the 4 or 5 who, no matter what you do, you're not going to get buy-in, and you generally tend to spend most of your time, I suppose, with those characters. How do you manage all of that?
You make a plan, and you kind of have to, I suppose, make sure your staff is aligned and you're thinking the same, because people, assistant coaches may think differently, but if they think differently, then we're going to be split. So we have to make sure our messages are very coherent and cohesive, and aligned to what the player's hearing, not what we said, but what the player's hearing, because it's two different things. What you say to something may not be what the player hears, so that's been a good learn for me. So sometimes you finish a meeting and you ask, well, what did you hear today from your coach? And if he repeats what you think you have said to him, then that's buy-in for me. But I think it's not the same group and it's not the same team, and that's why this year is very exciting. The fact that, as you said, there's 14 got out, there's 7 got in. You think that Johan Tanga or Anton Astoy are interested in what happened in Marseille? No, they're not. They weren't there. That wasn't their time. Their time is now. So we started 2 weeks ago. We started well. We had a sticky first game, but the boys showed great character, and then we were very good last week. Well, not very good. We were good last week for 75 minutes, and then nearly, typically in our way of the world, we nearly gave away the game. So we gotta try and strive to be performing tomorrow for more than an hour, because I think for 80 minutes at this stage of the season is a little bit unrealistic. So you kind of just create mini goals with the boys, and then but it's probably a little less serious than you think. We got some good fun guys here. Will Skelton is back tomorrow, Winnie Antonio, and I think their way of how they set themselves up to perform is very interesting. They love smiling, they love laughing, they love joking, and I think once you appreciate that and you know that there are going to be giggles in the room before game, that means that they're excited.
Yeah, it's not that they're not interested, that every player is different. That might be their way of getting themselves motivated.
Yeah, that was the big thing, I suppose. When I was at Munster, we were very, very serious. Felt that, you nearly were the bold kid in school where you put your nose in the corner and don't speak to anyone, and that means I'm serious. But you go to, Fiji, or you go to the Crusaders, you go to Racing, all different ways of how people prepare to perform, because you got to remember it's sport too, and a lot of these guys in their heads think they're artists. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But once you know that, you know what buttons to push, and you leave them off, because what happens around the world isn't necessarily what happens in Ireland. So it's been fascinating just to watch that and see how people prepare to perform.
New URC season obviously about to go. Lots of change at Munster, as we know. New coaching ticket, largely new anyway, and some players out. Not quite the 34 obviously that you've lost, and a couple including Malachi Fakatoa. We had Rory O'Connor on the show during the week, and he was talking about maybe they haven't recruited in the right areas. Is there a bit of the sense of the sort of slight, not so much of a change around the personnel maybe as they would have wanted in specific areas, and that coaching ticket been changed around? Is there almost a bit of a if they're building a bit this year, that's enough, not quite a free pass, but a kind of almost a free pass season?
No, I don't think anyone would look upon it like that. I think I would be hugely optimistic, I suppose, because I know the quality of the coaching group, and I think the players get so much direction from the coaching group. I read Dennis Leamy's interview during the week, and I thought his wording and his language was very pertinent. And I know Dennis well, and he's a fascinating competitor, but he's right in the fact that Munster have to earn the right to challenge for silverware. They're talking about silverware. It's probably for another day, but I thought his use of language was very apt. And they have some. Graham Rowntree would be brilliant with that group, but I think he needs help from his assistants, and he's got a great guy in Mike Prendergast, and then the Kariaku, and they've Kazi running the academy. So there's harmony there, I'd say, for the first time in a long while, and a harmonious coaching group will give direction and will shine the light for where the players need to get to, because Leinster at the minute are far, far superior than where Munster are at.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting season on all fronts, including for yourself as well. Catch up with you around the track. Thanks, Ronan.
Cheers. See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Ronan.
Ronan O'Gara on the line there from France, and interesting stuff as always.